Now, the Bram Weinstein Show on Washington's new home for sports, ESPN 630.
Hey, baby. Hey, baby. Hey, baby. Hi, everyone. I have not secured tickets to the Capitals game yet tonight. I still would like to go. So, it's 3 o'clock. Anybody looking for a Huckleberry to go with them to the game with them tonight, I'm in. So let me know. You can get a hold of me in any way, shape, or form. I check all platforms.
People must know it's a playoff atmosphere. Tickets are not cheap.
Yeah, I bet they're not. I bet they're not cheap tonight.
Yeah. Ooh.
I haven't asked anybody to go yet. I should probably do that if I'm just going to go buy a couple of tickets. As you know, I try to get the freebies as much as possible. I buy drinks though when I'm there. I'm a good partner.
Lower level ain't bad. I'll tell you that much.
How much?
Get-in price is like not what I would expect. If you want to sit in lower level, you can sit like end zone for $112.
Yeah, it's not too bad.
Yeah.
With the fees?
Hold on.
Yeah.
Hold on. Let's click.
Yeah.
Let's click the old fees here.
The old fee.
You're looking at about $112 each before
fees. Okay, so it's
they're no longer available.
$378.
Someone bought them when I was clicking on them.
Oh.
Those were the cheapest ones. 178, third row.
Yeah, no, I'm not. Come on, come on. I'm not doing that. I'll if I run into some tickets tonight, I'll go. If not, I'll watch it on TV. I would like to go though. My family's all out of town, so I got nothing to do.
Right?
So
yeah,
this is why I want.
You got no excuse over there, man.
I know, but I just don't like spending a lot of money. That's all. I don't. I want to go. We'll see.
Game.
It is big.
154 in that lower corner.
Okay, what's the
with fees?
How about that club section-y level? What's that looking like?
What, the 200s?
Yeah, the 200. I like the 200s. That's my favorite section for Caps games.
Club corner 190 with fees.
Okay.
I'm just going here. Yeah, about 190 will get you into the club.
190. Wow.
Yeah. It's cheaper to sit lower level.
If I had bought these 3 weeks ago, hoping that this game would matter, I probably could have got them for like half of that.
Don't even tell yourself that. You don't operate that way.
I know.
And I know you don't operate that way.
A few weeks ago, did not think this game would matter all that much.
Neither did I.
When they were trading people and Ovechkin wasn't on a scoring binge.
You warm up, not go like this.
And the Red Wings weren't this bad, heading into this.
3-7 in their last 10, yeah. No.
So, all right. So, we'll see. Maybe I'll go. Maybe I won't. I do want to go I don't like to go alone, so I'm going to have to sit with somebody. So I got to find a friend who wants to go to the Caps game tonight. You don't have a lot of friends, so
Yeah, that's fair.
I don't have a lot of friends. I got a few, and I also haven't asked anybody, hey, do you want to go to the game tonight? But when you ask that question, they assume you have tickets already.
It's true.
So when I turn around, I go, but we're going to buy tickets. That's always like, oh, really?
It's also the problem. I run into this problem, too, because you're you. They're going to assume you got them for free.
Correct.
And that's just not the case.
That
happens with me all the time.
So now it's going to become do you want to go? And then I'm buying tickets, and it's going to be, now you're telling me it's $400, and the other person's not going to pay because they're going to assume that I was gifted these things.
I've had the same problem because I have Commander season tickets. Someone thought like that I got to hook up through you. And I was like, no, I'm a paying season ticket holder.
That's right.
I only get to hook up for you on the away games.
I gave you a couple hookups this year.
No.
I did.
No, you did.
A couple little minor things.
No, I'm not.
For.
Right. I'm not mentioning that, but yeah.
Yeah.
You hooked it up in Green Bay. That was the winner chicken dinner on that one. But
That's right.
But yeah, people, I was like, no. I get an invoice every month. I pay for those suckers. So,
That's right.
Yeah.
All right, so we got 2 hours, guys. I'll keep bringing it up that I'd like to go. So anybody who wants to go with me, hit me up. And, if I get a good wing person to go with me tonight, then maybe I'll sport a ticket for me, especially if they're going to be $200 each. If they were really cheap, I would just buy them and then we just go together. But, me, I'm not going to splurge,
You splurge?
No.
I don't think it exists.
No, it doesn't exist. I don't know. Like I said yesterday, I feel like I've earned these. And I'm not asking for Game 7 against the Penguins here. I'm asking for a regular season game against the Red Wings because it'll be fun. It'll be a fun game tonight. Fun atmosphere, fun game tonight.
I mean, depending on the year, Caps Red Wings was a big ticket.
Yeah, was.
Ye old 98.
Yeah, ye old 98. Eiserman and company.
Yeah.
All right, let me just start with this because I feel like I want to say something because everybody needs to say something about this. What happened in Baltimore, early this morning?
Insane.
It's just awful in so many ways. I saw a clip of the mayor who was asked about when do you think this can be rebuilt, which is such the wrong question to ask right after it happened because it's an inconceivable tragedy that occurred. to the people who were literally involved,
Of course.
and of course the city, because this is a massive, important thoroughway for commerce in the city of Baltimore. And I liked his answer, and his answer was, listen, you talk to me about that another time. We're trying to save people's lives right now, and this is a tragedy. So I was glad that he said that, and it's right. I'm glad the Biden administration came out immediately and said, we're going to try to rebuild this thing. He said, we're going to pay for the rebuilding of this. It's an important, important bridge for the commerce of the city. And I saw the video of it, and it looks like a shipping vessel lost power and then lost control, signaled to the group that this has happened. And unfortunately, it was too late to stop a tragedy. And it's terrible what happened up there. It's just absolutely awful. I assume with the Orioles having opening day, they're probably going to do something, to commemorate's the wrong word, to acknowledge the terrible thing that occurred. I don't know how long it's going to take to rebuild a bridge that goes over water. That's going to be very difficult to do. But, hopefully it'll happen relatively quickly because I think it matters for the city that exists. This is, again, not the most important things, but traffic going through that area is going to be really rough, probably this summer, because that is the thoroughway that's going to be shut down, which means the tunnels are going to get overrun. So that's difficult too. And then there's a lot of people that had the worst possible experience of their lives just occurred. Fortunately, it sounds like some people were somehow saved from this, and others obviously were not. So this is terrible what's happened today. This is, I know it's not DMV, but I love Baltimore and we love our region. And that was horrible to see and horrible to watch. And hopefully they can rebuild quickly. And I'm sorry for all the families that lost lives. And, I did see some people put this, and it's ghoulish to say it, but it is better that it happened at 1:30 in the morning and not at 8 a.m., where the tragedy could have been a lot worse than it was. But
I get what people are saying on that.
Not to dismiss what's happened to the people who were involved with it, the people who were working on the bridge, the people who were working on, in the boats, and of course the people who were unfortunately on the bridge at the time when this occurred. So it was a terrible, terrible, terrible thing that occurred last night.
No, it's one of those things. We've gone through this now, I think, in the last 10, 15 years of you wake up and something on social media and you're like, what? Because all of a sudden it's popping up and you're like, is this real? Is this really? And
it didn't look
surreal.
Yeah,
it was surreal.
It's really surreal. I guess I totally understand that why this happened, but seeing it, literally collapse in an instant was almost impossible to believe. Yeah. So it's really terrible, terrible thing that happened up there. So hopefully everybody can recover pretty quickly. And I don't know what quickly even means, because I don't know how long it's going to take to rebuild the Francis Scott Key Bridge.
Right.
It's very difficult to do. So that was awful. Anyway, all right, let me shift back to why we're here, which is to talk about sports in general. All right, today was the day that Dan Quinn met with the media. Josh Harris did too. And he said a lot of things that I thought were, pretty newsworthy. So let me start there, and then I'm going to get to Ryan Poles, who did an interview with McAfee today, and didn't say that they're going to draft Caleb Williams, but did not dismiss the idea that they are going to either. And I'll play those two bites, the specific ones, in a moment about that. On the Commanders, let's start with Roger Goodell, who was asked by J.P. Finley point blank, what about RFK? And his answer was in line with what we think the NFL wants this to happen. They want them to go back there. They are aware that they can't make the Senate push this through, as the House did. They can't make the Senate push the bill that passed the House through, and they can't make President Biden sign it, but they're hopeful that it will. And then if those two things happen, then the city will have the opportunity to do what they wish with the land. And we know where Muriel Bowser has weighed in on this. She wants a stadium to come back there. The city council have pushed back a little bit, but we'll see. The monumental stuff is complicating everything, I think, a little bit here, because now there's this money that needs to be spent to try to retain them in the city, especially if Virginia falls apart and Ted has no choice, and they've got to try to make nice with one another in some way, shape, or form if it's not going to happen. So this has been complicated by what Ted and Monumental have done. I'm not blaming them. I'm just saying it's complicated, all of that. And then, with the land, again, there's so much red tape because you don't really know. The city council doesn't have to approve a stadium, so we don't know what exactly they would do. All the political things that's going on in Virginia with Monumental, the same things will happen in Washington. It does feel like it's heading this way. And the NFL, which is the most powerful sports league in this country, is obviously behind the idea of them going back there. And there were a couple things that Josh Harris said. One, well, let me say, Goodell said this, described the momentum and the idea of going back to RFK as, quote, warranted.
Yep.
So Roger Goodell grew up here. His father was a politician.
Mm-hmm.
Roger Goodell went to RFK, not unlike Josh Harris, not unlike myself.
Not unlike Biden. Biden went to RFK.
That's right. And has made it like, it seems like I want this to happen.
Yeah.
And like personally want
Correct.
this to happen. Like whether it's good for the league, not good for the league. A new stadium's good for the league no matter what, wherever it is. And I think everybody acknowledges that and knows that. Whether it's Maryland, Virginia, or D.C., a new home, state-of-the-art facility is great, right, for the team and for the league. But it being there, is there any kind of specific more gain for the league by it being an RFK? I don't really know, but it does feel like for him and for Josh Harris and for people like myself and native Washingtonians, the idea of going home is a very positive idea. And it feels very personal to him. Like, remember, like when he brought it up that he had talked to Muriel Bowser a couple of years ago.
Yep.
So it became very clear that he'd like it to happen. So the momentum is very real for this to happen. Obviously, the politicians have to play ball in all of this, and it's 3 levels of it. Now the Senate, then the White House, and then the D.C. City Council to determine whether they can do this. And then there's the fourth part of it, which is, do you actually have any public money to throw towards the building or infrastructure that's going to take place? Because I know billionaire sports owners, and they're not flipping the bill for the whole thing. That's just not going to happen. A couple things did happen, though, that were interesting. We didn't talk about this yesterday, but the league did approve about $85 million of what is revenue that goes to other teams to go back to the Harris Group to help with the infrastructure at FedEx Field for however long the time being is going to be to make the experience better there. So that is a nice olive branch symbol of the league realizes that this stadium is in disarray, that they need to do things to help it. I thought they did a lot last year, but they had a very short period of time to do it. This influx of money ought to help the infrastructure of FedEx Field. Not FedEx. What is it even called now?
Commander's Field.
Right. Like, yeah, the stadium in Landover. And so that's going to get, I can't keep up anymore. Washington Redskins football team, Commanders Park Field,
Jack
FedEx
Kent
Field,
Cook Stadium.
I don't even know anymore. Raljon. I'm so confused now. There's too many names. Too many names. I can't keep up. So they are acknowledging that Washington needs help from an infrastructure perspective. They've agreed to do that, knowing that a new home is coming. Josh Harris openly talked about it today, that we're, putting together a plan. And Goodell saying this is warranted is another sign of this is what the league wants to happen.
Yep.
Not just necessarily what this ownership group wants to happen. This is what the league wants to happen. So, I wait with bated breath to see if that's a possibility. And I do believe the league is going to also tell them, yes, even though we really want it here, you are going to have to pay a certain amount towards it. And that's where I think the rub may come in with the city. Do they have the money that is competitive with Maryland or Virginia to actually, if they get control of the land, do they have the money that makes building it there the right thing for the league and the team to do? And that'll be the ultimate barometer of whether this is really going to happen.
It's not lost on me that Goodell, of course, wants it back in the city. We knew that as soon as what was the first phone call to Bowser? Was it when Dan put the team up for sale and it was like November, December?
Yes.
Like
He
over a year ago.
Yeah. When we heard that, I went, "Oh my!"
Yeah. Okay, so we knew that was the first confirmed phone call, right? Now, when he answered that question, he said he's called her multiple times, which means he's been checking in every step of the way.
They want this.
I've said this. Yeah. I've said this before, and I think it basically confirms it. I don't think it's lost on the league how big of a deal it is to get a stadium within the city of the capital of America, and I think that basically, I've said this. Every other NFL team gets to pull the string of their politicians that are here in D.C. to go, what do we need to hand you to make sure this happens? Do we need to hand you Cowboys season tickets? Do we need to hand you Giants and Jets season tickets? Like, I've largely said this. The league is going to make this happen because they have such a big influence literally on the whole entire country, but it's not lost on them that what a shiny brand new stadium in
the city,
and the capital is what it's going to do for everything, the optics of it all, everything. Because especially, and you know this too, when you build a stadium and when you're going to build it down there, it's got to be done right. And when it's done right, though, it's there forever. And I don't think it's lost on them, essentially, that if they get this done, they're going to have maybe the best stadium, period, that is built until the next one is built, but it's going to stay there too. I think it's not lost on them, the big deal of it.
Here's the other thing that I would almost, if I'm Muriel Bowser, I'd ask for, and what I think the league would probably promise. I bet a Super Bowl comes here.
I agree. I didn't think it was going to be the case before, but now I think
there's
it's happening.
the biggest inducement of, you know, like you could have a Super Bowl here.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And they're gonna have to have a roof.
Yes,
it's got to be a dome.
It's gonna
there's no chance. Like they did this with New York, and it was a mistake from the weather. It just was a mistake. And I think Washington, if they put a either retractable roof or roof, like I like outdoor stadiums personally. I think the weather matters in football. I like the optics of it. I like all of it. Like I think it matters, and I would love for wherever the stadium is to be open air. It's not the modern point of view. Yep. Cleveland's even talking about when they build their new stadium, it's going to be domed.
It's like the SoFi experiment too, where it's open air, but it's still covered.
Yes, but their weather dictates they can do that. Like we'd have, you might as well have it open air if you're going to put a roof on it, but have it opened up anyway, because the weather becomes a detriment for a situation like this. Not anything else.
Yeah.
I believe that weather in the NFL is part of the poetry of it and is part of the artistry of it.
Right.
That matters. And unfortunately, that's just, we're looking at customer experience now, and people want to sell high-priced tickets and they want to be comfortable. And so they've determined roofs need to go on it. For the purpose of this conversation if you get this done, we will make sure a Super Bowl comes to Washington. It will start and end with there is going to have to be a roof on the stadium. Yep. And I don't know how, the new ownership group has thought about that, but that would be my expectation. But that would be the thing, if I'm the NFL pushing and saying, let's get this done and get public funds towards it. Here's one of the big givebacks we're going to give you. If you have the Super Bowl, this is the economic value to the city of Washington by having that. And it's massive.
I actually will say this, too, on the whole roof thing. This has just been a factor here. It rains so much now that I think is actually the bigger factor, not cold or hot. It's more about, to me, the Nats are dealing with this now even more often than they ever have, where the rain here is actually the game changer lately. Like FedEx Field now has, how many rain games have we had over just the last 3 years?
Yes.
It's been I'd say a third of the games feel like it's been raining at some point. And granted, we go through a little bit of the Florida weather in September where it rains for an hour and then it's right back to being sunny and humid.
That's right.
That's where I would.
And then even in December, it can be pretty temperate here. So snow is rare. But when we get one, it's cool. And then I always feel like with the northeastern places, I don't know why you would ever put a roof on your stadium, because the weather should be an advantage for you. Right. Like the Dolphins playing the Bills in December is terrible for them. It should be. We want it to be an advantage for you. And I just like it from the visuals of it. It's it's amazing when you see weather that alters or at least gives this kind of backdrop to the game. It makes all of them different. Sure. It makes the locales matter. But I have a feeling that's what we're probably steamrolling towards, is either a roof or, I'll take a retractable one where you can open it up.
Yeah,
I like that, but that's my give back here. But this is steamrolling this way. And I thought an important question was asked.
On that too, by the way, not just the Super Bowl. I think the draft is coming here too. I've largely said why they haven't done something on the mall yet, because you can actually do that, right?
Maybe we get both.
I would
the visual of the draft being on the mall is amazing.
Right.
So I'm surprised now that it's Lollapalooza and it moves around cities. It's a matter of time before we get that.
When Philly got it the first time around, I think it was the first, right? That was the first time they moved it from New York, was Philly, I think. Yeah. When Philly did it from Town Hall and they literally had the draft in there, it was like, when is DC getting it? Because Raj being on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial just feels right. So, that's got to be coming here too as well, because that's a boon now as well. So many people travel for that, which I'm shocked at. But the draft is definitely going to come here as well.
Yeah, I think that's happening no matter what at some point.
Yeah, right.
But with a new stadium, I just feel like if RFK is going to happen, a Super Bowl would be probably the inducement, and that would be unbelievable. If we had a Super Bowl week here, and who knows? Hopefully, we're in it.
Yeah.
The other thing that was said, which I thought was important on this regard with RFK, was Josh Harris was asked about the training facility, of which he went to great lengths to talk about how much money they're putting into it. Yeah. And he even mentioned that Dan Quinn and Adam Peters had some meetings with architects and said he had to leave the owners' meetings to meet with an architect because they are trying to enact changes off of not just the report from the NFLPA, which is not pleasant, obviously, and I've said this a lot about their facility. It happens to be old and it happens to be too small for modern standards. And so there's a lot of things that are there at that facility that are hard. They're going to be hard for the ownership group to get around to make it the type of place that is like in line with some of these new modern places. And eventually I believe they'll build a new one somewhere. But when asked about, the new stadium and the training facility, would they be in the same locale? Josh Harris didn't say that.
Yep.
He actually said, we're open to keeping it separated. And there was part of his answer was where I kind of landed on a lot of this too, especially one, you can't go to RFK and have both. It's not big enough.
That's
right. Okay.
Right. Yep.
So if you're okay with the idea of putting the stadium down there, the training facility will be somewhere else. But he also qualified it by saying, and I agree with this is a big area. We have 3 major jurisdictions. Keeping a flag planted in each of them, if you can, is a wise way to go about this. And he described it as this works. Didn't say it didn't work. He says It works. So the training facility either being completely redone or new, being in, say, Virginia or Maryland, that sounds like that's happening too. And there's a lot of ways to get around this. So if RFK is working towards happening, that's where the stadium's going to go. Training facility, I believe, would stay in Virginia partially because there's a deal with the sports book and having a flag in the state of Virginia. And so I think it'd be hard to get away from that if it's them. And then what do we do with FedEx Field in Maryland, or what was FedEx Field, because they own that property? Well, that could be Commanderland. And so I think there might end up being a way to try to keep a foothold in all 3 jurisdictions, even if 2 of them are going to be disappointed by having no stadium. If RFK doesn't happen and the stadium ends up, I would guess right now, Maryland. I think that would be pole position for the stadium if RFK does not happen. And Virginia maybe keeps or doesn't keep the training facility, but I'll go back to this deal with the sportsbook situation makes me believe that they're going to keep something there, and it's probably the training facility. What does DC get? I don't know much.
Yeah.
They're the ones that I think would be shut out of a footprint.
Business ops could be moved. I mean, it's probably the easiest one to shift around. It's probably the one that they're throwing at. They're probably throwing that to everybody as the third option of, hey, if we pull out of here with the training facility and the stadium, we can give you the business ops. I mean,
yeah, maybe.
Right.
Maybe. So, but the momentum's real on RFK. And when Josh Harris said, we don't have to have our training facility in the stadium the same place, I went, that's RFK.
Yep.
Because you could easily do that with any footprint in Virginia or Maryland if you planned it together, not unlike what the Wizards and Capitals were trying to do with Potomac Yards. You could do that whether it's at FedEx Field and the adjacent stadium location in Maryland, or obviously in Virginia where they have large parcels of land, especially out in Loudoun County, where you could do
Commanders
that.
Park at Potomac Yards.
Right. Maybe. The Glen Dome. Glen Dome 2. Let's try again. See what Louise thinks of that.
I think Ted would throw a chair out his window if that happened.
If they moved to Potomac Yards, Ted would lose it.
I'm telling you, a window,
a
chair would be thrown out onto the
street. You want to know what the answer is then? Ted moves to RFK.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, probably. Yeah.
Ted
No. I just said the practice facility. No, I said
the practice facility at Potomac Yards?
Practice facility at Potomac Yards, and they get RFK.
And they get RFK.
Like I said, I think a chair gets thrown out his window. That happens.
I think he'd go full Robert De Niro taxi driver. He'd be walking around with a mohawk, screaming at everybody. You looking at me? You looking at me? He's like, nuts. So that's RFK. All right, let me get into the other news of the day, which Ryan Poles went on with McAfee. He was asked point blank about Caleb Williams. You'll hear his answer next. Bram, watch the show, ESPN 630, Sports Capital. Okay, let's get to the other news from the owners' meetings. Ryan Poles, GM of the Chicago Bears, was on with Pat McAfee today. I'm going to play 2 bites for you that I think are important. Both of them about Caleb Williams. There is, it's not 0, but it's feeling like 1% they're going to change their mind now and actually do something else.
JJ.
I'm hoping. Please God, by the momentum of the community that says he has to be the number 1 pick because he is the next football Jesus. Please God, believe that.
We need RG3 to say why he would draft JJ. We need we need some psyops to happen here.
Interesting that you spoke about RG3. That's one of the things that was asked about. Let me play quote 1, and this is just about, and where McAfee just says to him point blank, you're picking him number 1, right? Okay. You got that one?
Hold on.
Because the other one is about RG3, and I'll get to that.
Is that the one where it says congrats on drafting?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, we got that.
Okay, all right. Here's Ryan Poles on with McAfee today.
Yep. You guys are drafting Caleb Williams number 1 overall.
We'll see.
Congratulations. You did it. Congratulations. Yeah. Congratulations. Woo! You did it. Okay, so that is an interesting thing.
Yeah.
because every report that comes out about you guys and Caleb, or Caleb's pro day, or you guys dapping up at the pro day, or having dinner at the pro day, and meeting him with his teammates and everything, everybody's like, okay, Chicago Bears fans are like, our guy is our guy. As this process has gone on, with your research into Caleb, what have you learned about him that you've loved? And what do you think people maybe had a misconception of him, or maybe you had a misconception of him going into the entire process?
Yeah, what makes it interesting is he's probably the biggest NIL football player to come through the process.
Ever.
And so you have to kind of break that down, because usually that's not the case. And, you want to know, does he have humility? Can he self-assess and say, I'll take ownership of what he needs to continue to work on and improve? And he's checked all of those boxes so far. So I've been encouraged, with the time that we've spent with him, the things that we've learned, in terms of does he fit our culture, and can he be a guy that helps take the Chicago Bears to the next level.
Do you hate the fact that it's like such a matter of fact that he's going? Because like when I was with the Colts when Andrew Luck was coming out, Andrew Luck took a visit to Washington because they had the number 2 pick or whatever, and in the building, whenever he was taking his visit to the Colts and said he had to go to Washington next, we're all like, yep, worth it. Completely worth it. Does it suck that you potentially have like next to no leverage with the number 1 pick because everybody seemingly knows exactly what you're doing? Or is it great because there's a guy that everybody assumes should be the number 1 overall pick?
I think it's year to year. But when you have pretty good clarity, it really doesn't make a difference.
Okay. One, I mean, he didn't say he was taking them, but he also didn't really push back very hard at it. 2, the end line of it's pretty easy when you have good clarity on all this. Okay, so we know what that is.
Right.
And then he just said all the things that we were concerned about. He's checked those boxes.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. And he did bring up the NIL thing, and I actually thought the way he talked about it was interesting and important.
Throwback.
Because, like a lot of people just dismiss this and they're like, well, it's just the way it is. And a lot of these guys are going to have money now. It's different than it used to be. But it is interesting that here's someone who is going to enter this that isn't hungry for money. Knows he's going to get it.
For sure.
Somewhere. But isn't in the, I got to go to you because I already got money in the bank. And so the hungry part of it is an interesting part to bring up. He described it as humility. I would describe it as hunger to be great. And it is an interesting question to ask. You have a lot of money. You've been told how great you are. You are going to be a very high pick, whether it's us or not.
Yep.
If we're going to make you that pick, though, we want to make sure that you actually want to be great and that you aren't settled for that you're going to get millions of dollars from us in salary, millions of dollars at least in sponsorship because you are who you are.
Right.
And, oh, by the way, your bank account is already pretty full from what you accomplished so far in your football career, namely at USC. And I do think it's the right question to ask. He's not the only one, but he's the most prominent one. Arch Manning is going to be very interesting when he actually gets to play and probably surpasses because of who he is and and what his family name is and all that.
Sure.
And he'll be playing at Texas, and it's going to be a big deal, and he'll probably make a lot of money. Like, it'll be interesting for him too. But I thought that's a fair thing to say back to everybody. Like, all of your reservations about whatever his character traits are or whatever quirks he may have that you seem to have some questions about. Our bigger question is, we already know you're rich. So do you really want to be great? And that's what's important to us because we need to know that.
Well, and there's also another factor there that I think he was kind of alluding to is Caleb the human being. A lot of times, I say this about all pro sports, not just football. These guys, a lot of times, it's the first time they have to live by themselves. And actually live a little bit. Whereas in college, they have everything laid out for you from the second you wake up to go to practice, to eat, to go to class. I mean, it's all laid out for you. Whereas when you become a pro in any sport, you all of a sudden have all this free time and you have to lay out your own schedule. I wonder if they had that conversation with him knowing, hey, you got all this money. So when you weren't at SC over the summer, did you figure out how to live your life day to day and not get distracted because you had money, stuff like that? I'm sure there's some positive impact there, too, that I'm sure they've asked him about.
In the past, when you come into a situation like this, the money changes for you overnight.
Yep, right.
But there's still this feeling of you have to earn it.
Yeah, right.
And that's not college athletics at that level anymore.
Sure.
You kind of don't.
Right.
You already have. And that's a different dynamic that, I just thought it was interesting he brought it up.
Yeah.
And I like the way he put it because, everyone else keeps focusing on his fingernails or he cried or
Right.
like what, or
Wear
like
certain outfits. Yeah.
Yeah, or like what's up, with his people around him, which is a real question to ask, no matter who's got money or not. Like
that's any sport as well.
Who's in his ear,
Yep.
right? Like we got to know, like where are you? Are you gonna listen to us?
Yep.
It's going to be very important. Like we're trusting you to be the franchise quarterback here. You got to listen to us first, and we want to make sure that that's the case. But you also are going to walk in here at a different stratosphere. Even most of your teammates don't have the same amount of money you do. Like especially the younger ones.
Right.
Like some 5th round pick who was drafted out of wherever that didn't have a lot of NIL money or had just a little bit. They're way behind you, and they've already been here for a couple of years. How are you going to handle yourself here? And it's a good question, and I thought that he answered it in an interesting way. All right, now last week we played the RG3 thing, where he came out and basically said, I wouldn't go to the Bears, and then tried to direct him to Washington, which was, thank you, I appreciate it. We're all trying to figure out what's the motivation behind that outside of he knows he's doing, like, RG3's gotten good to get into news cycles and make things that he thinks are going to get clicks.
Yep,
and it might just be that, and it might be something more than that, because he tried to direct him here, which we were all kind of like, I wonder what that's about.
I told you my tinfoil hat
yeah,
theory is that.
And I got theories too.
Yeah.
Like I thought I had it as he's trying to curry favor with the ownership group here because he had out loud said he wants to or had some job or some kind of role, and then you said maybe they went to him.
Yep, right.
Listen, I'm all for any kind of
season, playa.
Correct. I'm all for any kind of subterfuge to get things to go the way you want it to go. Anyway, Pat McAfee asked Ryan Poles about RG3, basically saying, don't go to Chicago. And this was his response to it.
Obviously, and we're lucky to talk to a few GMs around the league. But like when RG3 comes out, you heard it. Yeah. Okay. Don't you think like your particular Bears feels different than maybe the previous Bears? Like that's how we feel outside looking in. It's like, hey, this is a brand new building almost. Does it feel like that in there? And obviously you weren't there beforehand, but does it feel like you and Eberflus's culture is because at the end of the last season, it feels like, okay, the culture is kind of settling in, team settling in. You guys feel that obviously?
Yeah, it pisses me off a little bit, to be honest with you, because we were hired to break a cycle. The same thing when I was in Kansas City. Coach Reed, all of us were brought there to break a cycle, and we did. And no one talks about those days anymore. It's all about what they are right now. So I really believe we're about to break this cycle and get this city in a really good situation and win a lot of games. So the past is the past. Like I don't worry about that at all. It's about where we're going.
Okay. Another good answer, I thought. Now,
that one sounds familiar. That one hits home a little bit.
He was subsequently, because he did a media scrum too. He was subsequently asked about why move on from Justin Fields, which I think the answer is pretty obvious. You're going to draft this guy. You start the clock over. He looks like he might be great. You kind of have to do this. And his answer to that, I thought, it made a lot of sense. And he said, look, like when I showed up here, it was a year after he was drafted. We had a mess of an organization. He was openly admitting it. And he's like, by year 2, where Justin was a rookie and maybe didn't have the right infrastructure and we had changed some things around him, it wasn't enough to have him win. The team wasn't good enough. So we started to add on some talent. And then by year 3, as you could see, things started to get better, but we weren't good enough yet. We're still in this accumulation of talent. And now we're heading into year 4, and guess what? You got to pay the guy. And so he kind of broke it down to and I believe this to partially be true. Look, we can't do the things around the quarterback if we pay him $40 to $50 million a year.
Right.
And he described it as, you'll see around the league, the teams that do well with the rookie quarterback structure, and then they get to a point where the quarterback's ready to win, and then they just have to deal with the roster because of the cap space situation. Well, they're in a very different space than someone like us, where we had a quarterback and we're trying to build around him, and we're still building up the roster. But by the time we get to the point where we might start winning with him, now we got to pay him a ton of money, and it stunts everything that we're doing. We feel like the right thing to do is to start the clock over, and I don't blame them.
Right.
I don't.
No, I mean, we all knew that was a big part of the factor. It was not about the talent. It was about, we get to hit the reset button with a number 1 overall pick.
And we're going to pay him a rookie scale for at least a few years, probably 4, and maybe even 5.
Yeah.
5 is where it kicks in for him, but it's even not anywhere near what top. So you got 5 years of runway to have a really good cap situation with a quarterback who might win as much as that guy. It's the right thing to do. I still think there's a high ceiling for Fields. I still think if he ends up in the right place, and maybe Pittsburgh's that place for him, this could happen for him. I do think, it would be in Pittsburgh's best interest to not have him play a ton or be particularly great, because his contract's going to run out, and they could maybe get him at a lower-ish rate for a couple more years before his number explodes if he actually reaches his potential, and then they can deal with it from there. So I think the Bears do I never thought that keeping Fields was the right thing for them to do in this situation. I was hoping they would, but I never thought it was the right thing to do. And I like the way that he actually explained that. The other thing that happened today there was the Cowboys made it official. They're not going to extend Dak Prescott. Now, if they were going to, they clearly would have done it before free agency, because they were up against the cap. They made some decisions they probably wouldn't have made with Michael Gallup and some others, and let some other guys go like Tyron Smith. Like, would they have brought him back for one more year if they had the cap room? Probably. Would they not let Gallup go? Probably. Like, they probably would have looked at free agency a little differently, but they calculated, you know what? If we extend him, he stays in this $50 to $60 million range, and it just gets harder and harder and harder when we have guys like CeeDee Lamb and Micah Parsons and others that are coming up for contracts, and we know we have to pay them. So this is it for Dak. It's win or bust. It's Super Bowl or bust for him, and he needs to have a great year. Either way, there will be suitors on the other side, but the Cowboys are basically saying, show me and we'll pay you, because we have to. And if you don't, whether it's your fault or not, we're going to start the clock over with somebody else. And I said this for the last few weeks, I think it's the right thing to do for them. I don't think it's the wrong thing to do. I think it's the right thing to do. They could be in perpetuity with him making that kind of number, and it's not necessarily going to be good for them when they have to pay Micah Parsons the biggest contract ever for a defensive player, or give CeeDee Lamb $28 million a year, which is about to happen. They're not going to be able to keep their team together, and they're not winning with that quarterback. I think they're actually doing the right thing, but this isn't a surprise or newsworthy to me. I'm like, if they don't change his contract before free agency, what they're telling you is they're going to play out this year, which is why they did nothing in free agency. They ate it. They had no cap room, and they went, we're going to have a lesser team with him as the quarterback, but we'll have a good decision to make next year. And so I think this is a wrong direction for them for this year, but I understand why they're doing it, and I actually think they're doing the right thing. And Jerry might be saying back to him, we got a good enough team to win. You're still making $60 million this year. Go do it.
Well, and it's also, there's two factors here too. Dak can't, quote unquote, hold out because he needs to play. He needs to play to get another contract on the other side. You can't hold out when you're making
that kind of money.
No, of course. No. But he could make a stink about it, but he's not going to.
No way.
The other thing here too is I've said this for years now. Cowboys scouting is super underrated, I think. I don't think they get enough credit for adding to that team and honestly keeping them competitive. Romo was undrafted. They let him sit on the bench for a while and ended up being the franchise quarterback. They draft Dak, fourth round, I think Dak was drafted in?
Yeah.
Got him. Figured it out with him once Romo went down.
They haven't used a first-round pick on a quarterback since Troy Aikman.
Exactly.
Did you know that?
Right. Exactly. And so what I'm getting at here is they're probably saying, we have all the faith in the world, we'll figure it out. We know it's a giant swing and a miss if we don't, but we've done this before. And people that say we're lucky, you can say that, but I don't know. We found that Dak guy in the fourth round. He ended up being pretty good.
They may think Trey Lance one more year there will be ready.
That's also the factor too.
Possible.
For sure.
They could use a mid-round pick on a quarterback and let him sit there for a year, and who knows?
They could be looking at the Steelers and going, we'll take whatever one you don't want next year.
Maybe.
I mean, they really well could be doing that.
If you don't play Fields and he wants an opportunity and he's a free agent, he's not going to re-sign with you.
Right, exactly.
So he's going to be available. There'll always be a couple of others, and then if they have to go draft a quarterback in the first round next year, I guess they'll do it if they have to. I don't see them as a total fall off the cliff team this year. I don't see 4-13.
Well, they're also going,
but I don't think they're better. They're not better today. And there's a lot of pressure on McCarthy. There's a lot of pressure on Dak. Sure. The team's not as good as it was. It's not going to be considerably better because of what happened in free agency, which is mainly they stuck to this plan and said, we're going to take a lot of heat for not doing anything, but it's because we can't. But it's also because we need to make a decision about Dak Prescott after this year, period. We can't make that decision preemptively.
The thing is I could rewind the tape from exactly a year ago, and we were saying the same thing. They were not a better team a year ago either. They traded Amari Cooper for what? The 3rd-round pick or 4th-round pick? The 6th round. Yeah, it was even worse than that. And what
I was saying they need to get another running back. Well, they didn't do it. They didn't have the money to do it.
Well,
they don't have the cap room.
And what I'm getting, though, is they did that, and all they did was go and win the division. So they're probably also banking on, you know what, we might be a little bit worse, but we figured it out last year. We're going to figure it out again this year.
Well, I think if they're looking around, too, and they're going, what's Philadelphia doing? Like, their roster's very good, but that looks weird. Like, is Sirianni in charge? Is he not in charge? Is this going to crumble again on them? Like, is that going to go south? Are we really scared of the Giants with Daniel Jones? I don't know. And Washington, we're an unknown, but we're probably having a rookie quarterback playing this year. Do we really think it's going to be a Houston situation where we just take off in year one? So maybe Jerry's going, I think we got a reasonable shot to win the division. Once we're in the tournament, we're in the tournament.
That's right.
All right, we take a quick break. Bram watches the show, ESPN 630, Sports Capital. I never believe that the people who organize, like, up-and-up sports tournaments, like, I don't know, the NCAA tournament or the NBA playoffs are rooting for any kind of outcome, but I flipped on Iowa and West Virginia last night. And Caitlin Clark and company had a very low-scoring 3-point lead in the fourth quarter at home, in round 2 of the women's NCAA tournament. And knowing that she is buttering everybody's bread, this year, her losing that game would have been terrible.
Yeah, for sure.
For that tournament.
Yeah. Not only that,
nothing against the rest
too.
of the teams. I'm sure the girl at USC is amazing to watch.
Right.
And I'm sure she will be as the tournament moves forward. And I'm sure watching South Carolina, who's undefeated again, will be fun to watch and all that. But everybody on earth who knows anything about this that isn't a P1 fan of that sport is watching because of her. And it was precariously close to ending last night.
There were pictures at bars because, as you would know, usually you just leave ESPN on if there's not a major game happening, right? Well, because that was on like ESPN and then another game was on ESPN too, like women's hoops was on bars all across the country because there was no major primetime matchup in the NBA and baseball hasn't started yet. And so there are all these pictures coming in of people watching this game because it was the only thing on last night. And I was in the same mindset as you is, if they end up losing this, people are going to freak out and not watch. Honestly,
the ratings would nosedive.
Yes,
I'm convinced of it.
Yeah,
the ratings would have nosedived for the tournament moving forward, and they need them to be competitive.
Right.
And now they're in the Sweet 16, so all's well that ends well with that. They won, and there were a couple of calls late that were the kind where you go, that's not so great.
Right.
One in particular against her in the backcourt where the girl for West Virginia was just playing very tight defense. It did not look like she fouled her in what was like a 2-possession game, and they called it, and everyone's, that's basketball. You'll get a lot of bad calls.
Of course.
But it did, like, I understood the outrage where they were like, well, they want her to win. And I'm like, yeah, they kind of do.
Yeah.
Now, no one's rigging it. I'm like, but they do. And trust me, everybody who coordinates that tournament and every television executive was praying that they did not lose last night. And it was a little too close for comfort, honestly. And plus, like, it was 48-45 with 3 minutes left.
Yeah.
I thought she was like, Ponytail Pete. What happened? What's up?
On my show yesterday, I threw out a couple of gambling things with it. Over-under on this game, which is the one I actually threw out. 4 people to bet on last night, was 163.5.
Yeah, that's a lot of points.
It's a lot of points, let alone in a tournament game where defense locks down. I don't care if it's men's or women's. Easy on that one. Under. Her over-under, I don't know if you saw this.
Yeah, they missed on that by about 50.
Yeah.
Which Vegas is not that far off on things very often.
Correct. So I think they were trying to bait people in that watch the men's, I guess, maybe to just say, oh, yeah, that looks right. Did you see what her point total was?
No.
Her point total was 31.5.
Which she's under that, right?
She got fouled in like one of the last plays of the game, and she scored 32.
Oh.
Was right on the number.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So that one actually Vegas
right on
was on, and it was one of those interesting to some with the last foul she got. So, yeah, even everyone else trying to cash in on that side of the tournament.
Speaking of props, boy. You've read this thing about the Raptors guy, right?
Yes. Yeah.
This isn't good.
Uh-huh.
So the story is they're looking into this guy.
Mm-hmm.
I want to get the exact things because they're very sketchy.
Yep,
I mean, they're particularly sketchy. Let's see, from ESPN. Raptors forward Jonte Porter, this is Michael Porter's brother, is under investigation by the NBA following multiple instances of betting irregularities over the past several months, multiple sources told ESPN. At issue are prop bets that involve him specifically from games on January 26th and March 20th, multiple sources said, and the NBA is looking into it. In a game on January 26th against the Clippers, there was increased betting interest on under props for him, which for the night sat at around 5.5 points, 4.5 rebounds, and 1.5 assists. There was also an over-under for made threes, which was 0.5, okay? One shot.
Mm-hmm.
That evening, Porter played 4 minutes before leaving the game for what the Raptors said was an aggravation of an eye injury that he had suffered 4 days earlier. He didn't score against the Clippers, but had 3 rebounds and 1 assist, and he didn't attempt a 3, which means it was under on the prop. The next day, as part of a daily report to users on betting results, DraftKings Sportsbook stated that the under on Porter's threes was the biggest money winner for bettors of any NBA player prop from games that evening.
Wow.
Most people don't know who he is.
Right.
Okay, so that's not good. On March 20th against the Kings, Porter played 3 minutes before exiting because of what the Raptors said was an illness, and he didn't return. He did not score after attempting 1 shot and had 2 rebounds. His over-unders were set at 7.5 points and 5.5 rebounds. And DraftKings Sportsbook the next day released that Porter's prop bets were the number 1 moneymaker in the night from the NBA.
Wow.
Smoke, fire.
Yep, of course. Especially with someone of that caliber.
And
no offense to him and his career, but
in both cases, he exited a game
yep.
where, and the, you know, I mean, granted, like, we don't know who he is because his point totals are probably like this.
Right.
This is not good.
Well, especially too because I mean, if you bet on props like this, especially in the apps and stuff, if a guy does not play, you just get voided. There is no over under. The fact that he's entering games playing for 4 minutes, that is
and leaving,
yeah, like not entering the game again, yeah,
because he doesn't want to go up and chuck up a shot that goes in.
Right.
He doesn't want to go up and brick shots, and people are like, "What is that?"
Right. Exactly.
Right. So his out is I have an injury. And walks out of it. And, you know, again, I'm not going to accuse him of anything, but this is beyond curious.
Yep.
Now, for those who are like, going, see, sports gambling's ruining sports, I will turn back to, and why it is, the reason why we know about this is these groups work as watchdogs too.
Yep.
They send back reports and say, here's the irregularities that we got. Same thing happened with that Temple game a few weeks ago where all of a sudden the spread moved significantly in one direction for no apparent reason. Nobody got hurt. Nobody was sick. There wasn't like the coach had to leave. No reason. And all of a sudden the spread jumped the way it jumped. And oh, by the way, it hit for all the bettors that made that spread jump the way it jumped. It's an irregularity. And these groups are, listen, they don't want to lose money either. So they're going to send these reports immediately. They're a watchdog on, they're taking the money too, but they're watchdogging all of this, which is why we're talking about this today. So this will be a lesson to other NBA players who are not of the ilk that can be bought to do anything. And I'm not suggesting he is, but this is,
but when you're
the smoke is a little thick on this one.
When you're the biggest profit maker and it's released the next day multiple times, and like I said, when you're the caliber of player he is,
when it happens more than once too, and it's for the same things,
right? Exactly.
All of a sudden, so this guy's career's in jeopardy, and
absolutely.
they're going to be in trouble here. So we'll see how that plays out. The Wizards won again last night, 3 in a row.
Speaking of making
guys, why are you figuring it out now? Don't figure it out now, please. What are you doing?
Remember before the season, their over-under on games was 15.5.
And what is it at now?
14.
Oh, they're going to go above that.
They're going
to cover it. This is 3 in a row now? Now.
No coups last night.
Right. Bilal's out.
No Denny last night.
What's going on? They're not tanking.
No,
or at least no one told them to.
They're not. They're not tanking.
No.
They have 14 wins now, still 2 more than the Pistons. The Hornets have 3 more than them, at least in the Eastern Conference. Western Conference.
That Pistons-Wizards game is going to be a big deal in a couple weeks.
That's a couple weeks.
Or next week?
2 days.
Oh, that's in 2 days?
3 days, 4 days.
Yeah, that's a big deal.
4 days. And then
we got big week against Detroit. We got the Red Wings tonight. We got the Pistons for some lottery balls this weekend.
Spurs have 16 wins. They're the lowest in the West. But yeah, tomorrow the Wizards host the Nets, and then Friday, Wizards Pistons at the old Capital One Arena.
The Spurs one. The Spurs beat the Suns last night. Wemby didn't play.
See,
how did that happen?
What's going on here?
How did that happen? Oh man. Okay, guys.
My winning ways are coming to Virginia.
I told you we'd figure it out. Chief Keef for president.
Wizards, by the way, last night were like plus 12. I was all over that. That was too many points.
I agree. Well, it's because the Bulls are whatever.
Yeah.
They're whatever.
They're under 500, but 34 and 38.
Yeah.
But
They're
still,
average.
I was kind of like, that's a lot of points,
a lot
guys.
of points.
Wizards have been keeping it close.
Okay. Let me take a quick break. I want to read you Mike Tannenbaum's mock draft, which is making noise because it hot takes hardcore. We'll do that next. Bram, watch the show, ESPN 630 Sports Capital. We're a couple of days away from opening day in baseball. The season started, but opening day really around for most of the teams. And the Orioles will start at home on Thursday in the afternoon. We probably won't be on the air, although the weather is not particularly friendly right now.
Looks like it's just going to be cloudy by the time first pitch rolls around.
Okay. And then tomorrow, because we are partner with the Orioles, you can hear the games here in Washington on ESPN 630. They do a show with Andy Pollin weekly, and Mike Elias is going to be the first guest for Andy tomorrow morning. So we'll find out more about Jackson Holliday not being on the big roster and expectations, I think, because look, like World is their oyster this year. Now that they went and got Corbin Burns, they have a true ace. They got no excuse short of a lot of unforeseen injuries for being a front runner in the AL East, front runner in the AL, and potentially a World Series team this year. And then with new ownership here in place, it's my belief that like they'll give them the go ahead at the trade deadline to add on if they are in position to do so.
100%.
So I'm hoping that happens this year.
And that's tomorrow at 10:30. That's every Wednesday. The Orioles were actually so kind to us and Andy all year long last year. I mean, they gave us everyone. They gave us Adley at one point. I mean, they gave us usually they'll give us everyone at least once. And Mike actually, I think Mike came on 2 or 3 times throughout the year. So
good.
Yeah, 10:30 every Wednesday. That Andy will have a Orioles-oriented half an hour.
But I have a feeling we'll re-air some of that tomorrow.
For sure.
We'll see what he has to say as we get set for the baseball season. The Nationals also start on Thursday. They get the Reds in Cincinnati. So that's where they
had
start.
their Futures game this afternoon out there at Nats Park. So there you go.
All right. All right, let me get into this. Let's go hot takey time. Here we go. Everybody's got to have an opinion. But you know what? An ex-GM does a mock draft. I'd like to hear it. Mike Tannenbaum. And, of course, he had to take a swing outside the box and see what he could come up with, and it's a pretty good one. It's a twist. He had to think long and hard about how this would work out, and it won't, but I do like what he did.
Mike's done a good job of staying relevant. I'll give him that.
Yes, he did. Okay, number one, he's not going to go crazy. He says Caleb Williams will go to the Bears.
Okay.
All right, so now let's get to the part where we get like
it takes one pick.
Let's get to the pivot point because even today, and I didn't really talk about this, but Dan Quinn did do interviews. Adam Peters did it yesterday. Dan Quinn did it today. Dan Quinn said to a bunch of reporters today, we don't know what we're doing at number 2 because we haven't even gotten all the information yet. And he said, whoever's saying whatever we're going to do, Adam Peters and I, we haven't decided what we're going to do.
Right.
So they're leaving it very open-ended. We're less than a month away from the draft. And to be fair to them, Jaden Daniels hasn't had his pro day yet. That's tomorrow.
Yep.
So they're going to go to that. Drake May hasn't had his yet. So they're going to go to that as well. And those are the 2 I think that we're talking about here, albeit the JJ train is like picking up steam.
Sure.
And it's going at lightning speed at this point. So
no, I also think I think they were kind of dissatisfied with everyone assuming they were taking Jaden. Like, I think this is all also a ploy to go, we haven't decided anything. We could take one of 3 guys or 4 guys at this point, so don't assume anything.
And
especially if you want to trade up and give us 6 first-round picks.
Correct.
You know, like, that's a 1% chance, but, like,
correct.
You don't know that.
Well, and I think they should be open for business.
Sure.
I still don't think the right thing, like when Adam Peters said yesterday, we're going to do what's right for the team with number 2, the right thing is to take a quarterback. I think we all know that. They don't have their quarterback of the future on the roster. Mm-hmm. They traded away Sam Howell, so they clearly have made room for who that person is going to be. One of the other things he said today, which I thought was semi-interesting, is he said, we plan on bringing 4 quarterbacks to camp. Now, I know people made a big deal of that. That's not unusual.
Right.
I know people think it sounds unusual.
Yeah.
it's not. Like, we had 4 last year. We have 4 every year. It's typically a very developmental quarterback that's number 3.
Right.
Mariota's their backup. Like, no matter who the quarterback is, we're drafting one probably very high at number 2. They do need a third. That currently is Jake Fromm. But Jake Fromm is, from the old regime and is a carryover here. We don't know how Kingsbury feels about him and whether he would be a viable developmental player. I liked him last summer. Last summer I was watching him going, if you told me he was the primary backup at that point, I wouldn't have been surprised with the way that he was playing. So he'll get a chance, and then they're going to bring in their own guy who's a developmental guy that'll sit back there. So I didn't see that as all that newsworthy, but people pointed it out. So he said, we're going to get 2 more quarterbacks one way or the other. We know what one way is going to be, right?
Yep.
Tannenbaum has them taking Drake May. There's split opinions on all this. Sure. And I will hear out all of it. Like, even yesterday when Peter said stuff about, what did he say that I was like, that's May, not Daniels, actually. He said something yesterday.
He said, Quinn said he likes an athletic type quarterback.
Right.
And we said that's not just Jaden Daniels.
Correct.
That is also Drake May.
It is, especially with what he was talking about.
Yeah, right.
What he was talking about was, because he said we brought in, Mariota's an important piece to this because he's going to be able to understand and run the offense we're talking about.
Right.
That actually is May.
Yep.
Like, so I see both of them still. Like, you asked me, what's my preference? I'd say Jaden Daniels, like, of the 2. But, like, I'm not dismissive of they may come to terms with it's May.
Right.
Tannenbaum described him like Justin Herbert, which a lot of people have done from the, he's 6'4", he's got the arm, he looks the part of all of that. And he is athletic.
Yep.
He's not Daniels. Like, nobody is. Lamar is, Justin Fields is, nobody else is. But, like, he is athletic. He's not like Herbert can't run. So he could be Herbert with some wheels. I'd describe it more like Hal. Hal can move.
Yeah.
Hal's mobile.
Yeah, right.
Hal's not beating you with his feet all that often, but Hal was actually, what I really loved about him was when he did leave the pocket, he was very smart with the ball. He took a few too many hits. I think he learned that lesson as the season went along, but he kind of knew when to leave, when to run, where to get to. I thought he was a little too Josh Allen-y with how many hits he took on himself, but whatever. Anyway, May can do this. So that is a difference maker for him. So he's got us taking Drake May. So that means at number 3, he thinks that's the dream come true for New England. Why would they trade out? They get the guy they actually want, Jaden Daniels, so they select him. So here's where things get weird for him. He says J.J. McCarthy will go 4th to the Cardinals. Okay, now that makes no sense.
What?
Until you get to the latter part of this take. The Cardinals will start the clock over with McCarthy.
Okay.
They buy the hype that he's going to be a next great quarterback. And because Minnesota is hot and heavy to trade up for a quarterback, they trade for Kyler Murray.
Okay.
So that's his take.
All right.
I don't actually...
The reasoning is not the craziest in the world.
No.
What's all that dead money look like, though? What does the deal look like being traded? Like, he's saying this out loud. I need to know what that looks like. Because if it's $60 million of dead money left with the Cardinals, they're not doing that,
Or they aren't eating it for a year.
Okay. I mean, all right.
Like, I will... What? Does Minnesota want him? Like, who gave you that idea?
It seems weird to me. Yeah, that they would just do that. And then they still have to pay Kyler's contract because it's a legitimate contract. Why wouldn't they have just re-signed Cousins if they were talking about that amount of money?
I agree.
Because it would have been... I have to look up Kyler's contract.
No, Kyler is now affordable for you because they eat all the dead money to allow him to go. Kyler then becomes affordable, I believe. I have to look at the contract, but what is his base salary? Because that's what you would be on the hook for.
His base salary this upcoming year is $37 million.
Okay, so it's not really affordable.
Right.
I mean, it's still expensive.
It's still cheaper than Kirk, I guess.
Yeah,
so
it is.
I guess that could be the case. You only get, though, you're only getting 4 seasons out of him. So
he says this. They would give the Cardinals number 11 to get Kyler Murray. That's what he's saying they would do.
Okay. I think it would cost you more, wouldn't it?
No, because you're taking on the contract.
Okay. All right. Fair enough.
Taking on the contract. He's been coming off an injury. He also hasn't won very much.
All right.
So this is a change of scenery. Now, I look at the O'Connell offense, like I look at McVay or Shanahan, and I go, That ain't him.
That's true. Yeah, no, that's exactly right.
I don't think so. So I don't believe this. I appreciated the reach that he went for to try to do something that was unique, but I don't see that. And I think Minnesota's probably reading this going, are you crazy? Like,
right.
What makes you think we're doing that?
I mean, to be fair, though, because he runs around so much, you could get more done with what they have on offense. Like him running around and chucking it up to Jefferson. It's not a planned offense, but they'd get it done.
Does making that move appease Justin Jefferson? Because I've been waiting for him to go, I want out of here.
Right. Yeah.
Because are you going to pay me? 2, what's our plan?
Right. He goes, I can get
what
the
are we
money
doing here?
I can get the money anywhere.
And he openly said how much he liked Kirk because Kirk threw him the ball a ton. And Kirk's a very good quarterback. You don't know this with Darnold.
Right.
And I saw Kevin O'Connell do some interview, and he's going on and on about how I've watched Darnold throughout his career. And they believe that Darnold, he's going to have his Baker moment by going there. That's what they think is going to happen for now, which is why I also don't believe that they are going to do something like that. Will they draft a quarterback? Probably not at 11, but would they move up to get McCarthy? Maybe. I'm more inclined to believe they'll move up to get McCarthy than they will to trade for Kyler Murray.
He's not getting traded. Do you know what his dead cap is this season?
What?
$111 million.
Okay.
He's not.
They can't spread it out like Denver's doing it?
I don't think so. It's $111 million.
Come on, Mike. You're a former GM. You're smarter than this. Why would Minnesota do that?
Right. Because they would have just paid Kirk if they were going to pay a significant contract out.
I also wouldn't give up the first-round pick for him.
I might. If the contract
Not if they select McCarthy and they got to get rid of him.
Well, yeah, no, that's true.
And then at that point, I'm like,
you're forced
Fields got a 6th-round pick.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
I'll give you a higher 6th-round pick.
Conditional 4th.
Yeah. How about that?
Yeah.
Let's see. He's got the Chargers taking Joe Alt, which would be the best tackle off the board. That makes sense. He's got the Giants.
Who did he have the Patriots taking, by the way?
Jaden Daniels.
Daniels. Okay, got it.
I'm pretty convinced. I believe that. I believe they're trading because they don't believe they're getting Daniels. But if Daniels falls in their lap, they would take him. That's what I think is happening. I think they want us to take Mayor McCarthy. Yeah. I think. Giants take Malik Neighbors, who has been rising up the boards as potentially the top wide receiver. We'll see if that actually happens. Sure. They've got Tennessee taking a tackle at 7. They've got the best defensive player on the board, Dallas Turner, going to Atlanta. That makes a lot of sense. I think they're sitting pretty at 8 because now that they got their quarterback and they seem loaded on offense, they need to fix their defense. And it is reading like they're going to get whoever the best defensive player on the board is at 8.
Yeah.
That is a low number to get best defensive player on the board. So they're sitting pretty right now with that.
Yep.
So then, because of the way this shook out, and I don't think this is too far out of the realm. I believe Arizona in the end will probably take Marvin Harrison or Neighbors.
Yeah.
But if they get overwhelmed with an offer, I could see it, right?
Mm-hmm.
I could see it, right? Yeah. By his draft board, he's got the Bears getting Marvin Harrison at 9, which means they would get Caleb Williams and Marvin Harrison in the same draft.
That would be stupid.
Watch out. You think Houston was a turnaround story. Watch out.
That would be dumb.
They get him with DJ Moore. And who'd they pick up? They got DeAndre Swift.
Yeah.
And they've gotten better on defense. I don't know if it's good enough, but they've gotten better on defense.
They got another wide receiver. They got from the Chargers. They traded a 4th-round pick for him.
Keenan Allen.
Yeah, they got Keenan Allen.
Keenan Allen, DJ Moore, Marvin Harrison. Detroit will not be the favorite to win their division overnight if that actually happens. Mm-hmm. NFC North gets very powerful very fast because Detroit's still good. Green Bay, they surged late and looked like they're budding back to being competitive again. And then the Bears overnight, if Caleb is anything close to what everybody thinks he's going to be, and they end up with Marvin Harrison too, watch out. They're going to be good fast.
That becomes a fun team in Madden.
Really fun team in Madden. They got the Jets taking the tackle from Penn State there. And it goes on from there. He's got Denver. He's got your boy Peyton taking Bo Nix at 12, which seems very high.
What's he have Steelers picking?
He's got that guy Adunze going to the Saints at 14, which would be low for him.
Yeah.
Pittsburgh, let's see.
Like 20-ish, I bet.
He's got Pittsburgh. He's got Penix going to the Rams.
Okay, I like that pick, actually.
Maybe. He's got the speedster out of Texas, the receiver, going to the Steelers at 20.
Makes sense.
Where was Brock Bowers to the Eagles? Kill me if that happens.
Calm down over there.
Listen, man. You know me on certain players. That guy's going to be good. It doesn't matter who he plays for. He will be good. There's no way around it. He will be. Marvin Harrison's going to be really good for whoever he plays for. Brock Bowers is going to be really good for whoever he plays for. I know these things. You know I know these things. Like, I called Zay Flowers from the jump. I went, whoever gets him is going to be good. When Baltimore got him, I go, no one's going to believe it because Baltimore always gets it wrong with the receivers, but watch.
Right.
He'll be good there. They got a hit. They got a hit in that guy. Brock Bowers, short of injuries, because he had him last year, will be very good for whoever he plays for. He's one of those. You got to trust me on this. I watch too much film. He's good. You get him at 22, that's a joke.
I'm actually more surprised he didn't have him going to the Bears. That makes more sense for the Bears in terms of need. Like, I know they have Kmet up there, but they'd get a dynamic tight end to pair with Williams. I think him going to Chicago makes more sense, actually.
That high?
Yeah.
If they're gonna somehow get Marvin Harrison in their lap,
Harrison aside,
or Neighbors, either one of them, or Odunze,
because all I'm saying is they've got two quality wide receivers. If they go tight end there, all of a sudden you're really cooking.
If this isn't that far off, because if the top four end up being, because if Arizona trades out, it's a fourth quarterback, 4 in a row.
Right.
The tackle going to the Chargers makes a ton of sense to me. However, I think we're overlooking the Chargers letting Mike Williams and Keenan Allen go does scream to me that it is wide open for them to take Harrison or Neighbors.
Yeah.
Because they get a cheap version that might have the same actual production.
No, that's fair.
I actually think, while they probably need a tackle, I would actually think if Marvin Harrison's at 5, Harbaugh's taking him.
They gave Kmet a extension too, by the way, so he's not up until 2028.
Right.
So they probably wouldn't do that anyways.
The other one on his list, this is another one I'll just point out now. The edge rusher from UCLA, they have him going to the Lions at 29. He's also going to be a hit. Like, I tell you right now, he is this guy. I don't even know how to pronounce his first name. Latu, watch out. Like, this guy's for real.
All they do is keep adding to their defensive line, too.
So I like just to point out the guys where I go, I know they're going to be good no matter where they go. And for the Lions, because they are building. I don't know if I buy Goff as I don't know.
I think he's good enough in that system, in that team. The defense is so good.
I'm not scared of their skill position guys. So your boy Snoop Benny Ben up there.
Snoop Benny, man.
You got to keep...
Definitely not my boy.
Yeah. Don't call me, I'll call you. Snoop Benny
Not
Ben.
my guy, is your guy for sure.
Not anymore.
Yeah,
he's dead to me. That guy's dead to me.
That guy... Vicious.
He's dead to me. Yeah. He's done to me. Like, after what he did, he's dead to me. I don't know if their offense is going to be the same. They lost one of their guards. Listen, I think Amon-Ra's very good. I put him in the McLaurin category.
Yep.
No one's going to say he's a top 5 receiver, but he's very, very good. Josh Reynolds not going to be there. Had a big year for them. Who's their number 2? Oh, I guess they have Jameson Williams.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
Who, by the way, like, he got suspended last year? He either got suspended
first
or was
few
hurt.
games, but then he came back and really wasn't a major factor.
Sure, but we're talking 2 years in a row for that.
Laporta turned out to be a hit. They still have very good offensive linemen.
Which is what matters for them. They run the ball more than anything.
Bears are going to be better with Caleb, I think. Packers got better fast.
Sure.
That's different division this year.
Right.
Minnesota looks like they're going.
Yeah, Minnesota's the clear-cut worst one.
Well, they've lost their minds. They're in the category. I love talking about. I hate it when it's us, but I love talking about teams I don't know what they're doing, and they're one of them. I don't know what you're doing. I don't understand it. What are you doing?